What's up, Broncos country? In today's edition of Bronco Talk, we are especially hyped because it is Raider week, so let's talk Broncos.
What do you want to do?
I don't know, what do you want to do?
I know. Let's talk Broncos.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Bronco Talk, where we talk Denver Broncos football. In today's episode, we are previewing and predicting the outcome for the matchup between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos this week, as Las Vegas visits Denver and they are finally home from a 2-game road trip that left them in West Virginia for a week. They were away from home for about 10 days so that they could prepare for the New York Jets and not have to go back and forth. So I know they are glad to be home, playing in front of a raucous Mile High Stadium, or Empower Field if you call it that, just to appease the sponsors, of course, of the Mile High Stadium. But that being said, I know that Broncos fans are extremely happy to have a 2-2 football team after starting off 0-2, so they're going to greet them with a warm welcome and, of course, bring all the noise for a jokester of a franchise, the Las Vegas Raiders, coming in. And quite honestly, I could see the Broncos handling the Raiders pretty well, with the offense rolling. Not necessarily at its peak. I think that there's plenty of room for growth for the Denver Broncos. Don't get me wrong, but it was very encouraging to see Javonte Williams go from spinning his wheels and getting hit at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage, running for 1.8 yards per carry, to see the holes that were opened for him against the Jets, a pretty stout defense. I know they were without CJ Mosley, but overall, they're known to be a pretty stout defense. They have a defensive-minded head coach. So that's the way that I thought it was going to go as far as the Jets. I know that they've got Aaron Rodgers, but there takes time for chemistry to build, and we're not really looking in the rear view, but as far as the run game is concerned, as far as how this offense is developing, we are super encouraged over here at Bronco Talk because Javonte Williams is one of my favorite players, and it's just really, really awesome to see him start to get the ground game going. And if we can get the ground game going, that's going to be great for the Rook, Bo Nix, going out there and seeing less pressure, less men in coverage, trying to find the holes in the zone, or if we're the defense is playing man, of course, finding the best matchup. So it all goes through the run game, and like I said, seeing that run game start to get going, both Javonte and Jaleel after Tyler Bidet went down, was super encouraging. So let's keep it rolling on offense. That defense is still balling out. Now, when I look at this game, I division games so much come down to one score. Little foreshadowing here. I don't see that happening in this game, but the Broncos, when you look at the Broncos and you look at the Raiders in a division game, that usually comes down to one score, even if one team is slightly overmatched or the other. But like I said, I don't necessarily see it coming down to one score, and you'll get my prediction in just a bit. But what I do look at is how the rankings are starting to pour in a month into the season. Much like Sean Payton had said in previous press conferences, he doesn't really look at the rankings, but as the season goes on, you can pretty much get a good idea for what a team does well, what they're not so good at, and how you can exploit their defense or offense, or take a game breaker or a real threat away from the offense. So what I look at is that the Raiders are 20th in overall defense, and they give up around 200 yards in the passing game and a little over 130 yards in the running attack. But when you look at the Raiders as a whole, they're pretty much kind of spinning their wheels, and they're starting to dig themselves a hole as a culture, as a franchise. Antonio Pierce comes in as a first-time head coach after being the interim head coach last year, and the season ended well for all intents and purposes for the Las Vegas Raiders under the guidance of Antonio Pierce. But you almost wonder what it's going to look like when a first-time head coach that just took over as interim head coach the previous season is going to do things as the leader of the franchise, at least on the field, going forward. As the head coach of a football team, you want to be strong-willed, you want to implement your scheme, but you don't want to call out players, and that's what we've seen from the Las Vegas Raiders over the last couple of weeks, so much so that their star wide receiver, Davante Adams, is asking for his way out. Now, they are reporting that Davante Adams has a hamstring injury or something to do with his leg. One could assume that means that it's just a matter of time before he's traded, and the hamstring it may be a real issue, but not a real issue that would keep him off the field in normal circumstances. So the culture is really kind of shook as far as the head coaching of Antonio Pierce, as far as calling players out for making business decisions, and just really kind of awkward, kind of like cringy, even for a Broncos fan looking from the outside, looking into the Las Vegas Raiders. It's like, I wouldn't necessarily see a head coach wanting to do something like that, and it's really going to negatively impact the Raiders. So you could look at the statistics: 20th in overall defense, giving up 200, just over 200 yards in the passing game, 130 in the rushing attack, and the metrics. But that's where the culture comes into play, and you see a Sean Payton really getting behind his rookie quarterback, almost getting offended that reporters are asking about his confidence going into a second half of a football game where he ended the first half with -7 passing yards. And sure, the conditions played a major factor. Both quarterbacks were struggling. Both offenses in general were struggling. It looked like a very defensive-minded game plan from both teams because the rain was so much of a factor in the passing game, which allowed defenses to tee off on the quarterback and really play the run well. So that led to both offenses really kind of having kind of a underwhelming performance from their running attack in the first half and their passing attack. And then fortunately for us, we were able to get the running attack going in the second half, which opened up some windows for Bo to operate and at least salvage his first touchdown pass, which was awesome, and a victory. So great things happening for the Broncos on a 2-game winning streak. And then when you look at the Las Vegas Raiders in comparison, who eked out a victory against Baltimore and a Cleveland football team that's not necessarily a team that's going to be in it when it comes to late December football games. Cleveland looks like they've got all the playmakers, but maybe the quarterback's the wrong fit, or we'll see what ends up being the case in the offseason. But I don't have too much confidence in Cleveland. I saw the Broncos beating the Browns coming into the season as well, so not much to gauge the Raiders on just for having a victory and getting it rolling behind Antonio Pierce after the comments that were made, because still there's an elephant in the room. There's still a negative connotation when it comes to the players and the coach. Now, they might play the ones that aren't high profile, the Max Crosbys, the Davante Adams, the more high profile players might see this as an opportunity to step up once Adams is gone, or if Crosby, who is, from what it seems, legitimately injured, sits out, and you get to have that opportunity on offense or defense, depending on your position and who's out, and find yourself in the good graces of Antonio Pierce, and that might play well in the long haul for the Las Vegas Raiders. But as it seems right now, a traveling Raiders team that has a negative culture around it currently, going into a Denver Broncos hostile environment that, mind you, we haven't beat them home or road since before COVID. So, and that came on a batted pass in the last seconds of the game. Shelby Harris knocked down a 2-point try. Otherwise, we could have very well lost that game. So that game, the last game that we beat the Raiders, was very close. So, and we're talking 5 years apart, or almost 5 years apart. So those are comparisons that Sean Payton doesn't really like. He doesn't pay any attention to what streaks that the Broncos are trying to break or maintain based off of previous regimes or coaches or staff in general. He's looking at this team. He's looking at what he can make happen for this week. And that's what I love about Sean Payton. And I've always felt that winning streaks against teams, although I do love the fact that the Broncos have a long-standing winning streak against the Cowboys. I love that because Dallas, Denver, against my Cowboy friends or compadres, I'll mention that Denver's the real big D. But we're talking about Raiders, Broncos this week. So, and I'm super hyped about it. So keep that hype level up as we go into the actual game. But I think that the Raiders are, with their culture, is just kind of got a black eye right now. We'll see if they get some ice on it, see if they put some ointment on it, kind of get that healed. But I see the polar opposites of football teams going on right now. A young, lively Raiders team that also believes in their head coach coming in and then starting to go downhill, and a team that was young and hungry but started off kind of slow, and they're going up, and it's kind of coming to a head right now. And with us having home field advantage, with the Broncos fan base not seeing them since the Broncos got kind of embarrassed against the Pittsburgh Steelers in the home opener, as far as Justin Fields and him laying in a couple of dimes, and really the Broncos kind of looking a little bit shook in the defensive passing game. We had a couple of pass interference calls or holding calls. Just the defense wasn't rolling to the degree that it is now. And that's super encouraging to come back home and play in front of a crowd that's going to be ready for Raider Week. I know I am. So the crowd's going to be a factor. And just culturally, when you look at where the Broncos are versus the Raiders are coming into this game, it's polar opposites. So I'm super excited, super stoked, and super ready to give you my prediction going into week 5 of the NFL. Las Vegas Raiders visiting the Denver Broncos. I don't really see the Raiders, especially with Devontae Adams sitting out with a hamstring injury and potentially Max Crosby being a game-time decision. I haven't seen any news notes or any storylines regarding Max Crosby, whether he's a full go or a full sit. I think it's going to come down more to later this evening or tomorrow morning before game time. But I've got, either way, Mad Max playing or not. I know Adams is out. He's so long, see ya, sucka, bon voyage in Las Vegas. He's probably going to be in New York. So we missed him on both sides. He didn't get traded before the Jets game, and we already played the Jets, and he's not going to be a Raider this game. He's not going to be playing this game and probably won't be a Raider for the next game. So either way, I think the run game is gonna open up and give Bo Nix plenty of opportunity to throw for a decent amount of yardage and potentially get a passing touchdown. I'll give you my keys to the game and my bold predictions tomorrow before the game. But as far as the score prediction goes, I've got the Broncos winning 24-6. I don't see the Raiders really scaring me on defense or offense. I think that we handle the Raiders pretty well. I almost went 27-9. But I don't think the Raiders get another field goal, and I honestly think if given the opportunity to kick another field goal, that the Broncos will be close to the end of the game and trying to run clock and probably getting a first down. And even though we'll be in Raiders territory, we'll be kneeling the clock out to give us our third victory in a row, third victory on the season, and something to hang our hat on going into a week 6 matchup against the Chargers. So there you go. There you have it. Broncos country and everybody tuning into Bronco Talk. We've got a 24-6 victory. No touchdowns given up by this stout Denver Broncos defense in week 5 of the NFL, ending the streak that Sean Payton probably doesn't care about because most of it has to do with coaches and staff and players that weren't on a team that he's coached in Denver, whether last year or this year. We've got barely anybody left from before Sean Payton was the Denver Broncos head coach. But still, in Broncos country, we care because we very much dislike losing to the Raiders, whether they're in Jokeland or Las Vegas. We don't really care. We just want to beat the Raiders, and I think that we do it in week 5, ending the streak and potentially sweeping them this year. I have the Broncos. I had them going 5-1 in the AFC West at the beginning of the season. I could see if Justin Herbert is injured, and depending on how the Chiefs respond with Rashee Rice on IR, I could see the Broncos sweeping the division. Honestly, with this culture just going up and up and up, and I think that the Broncos and Sean Payton will figure out ways to open up that run game, taking some pressure off of Bo and allowing the offense to really start rolling as we go forward. But that's my prediction. Leave your prediction in the comment section. Like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time on Bronco Talk.